seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me
Hello everybody, welcome to the Scottish Rugby podcast brought to you by the Scottish Rugby blog. I am Cammy Black. I'm back after my wee holiday. John's not here though. Johnny's just mentioned that in the private chat. I should have told you, Johnny. John's not coming this week. He had band practice last night, and he's having a night off tonight. So no rest. After you thank you to Johnny and Craig, who was now filling in last week with me being away and John being unable to speak. It went well, apart from Johnny, you peddling cow medication for humans.
Hey, listen, it's spreading.
Well,
everyone's peddling it now.
It's going to spread unless you get proper human medicine for it.
We shouldn't talk about Johnny's ailments.
Speaking of your ailments, Johnny, how was the weekend?
It was brilliant. Yeah, really good fun. Nice to catch up with everyone. Good game. Othermont did its job. I'm not in too much pain. So, no, it was really good fun. And when I checked this morning, we're over £3,000 raised for Melanoma UK, which is brilliant. Good effort from everyone.
17-0 up here, and then they brought on their entire first team.
They brought on at least 6 of their first 15, including their first 15 captain. So we ended up losing 29-26, which I thought was pretty good, considering that most of the squad had never met each other before Saturday morning. And the 12 or so players who had played together and met each other before, as soon as they arrived in Southport on Friday night, went out on the piss until about 3 o'clock on Saturday morning. So, when we all first woke up on Saturday morning, we were talking about trying to keep it to double figures. So, to be winning and then only lose by 3 points, I was pretty happy with. That was pretty good. Yeah.
Can you've reviewed your own performance because someone videoed it?
I've reviewed the good bits. No, to be fair, I've reviewed the bad bits as well. It just took a bit longer.
I heard tell that at one point you insisted you were not off your feet at a ruck, but then I'm watching it back now, cannot understand how you thought that.
I insisted that for a good 2 days on the sideline. At the time, I was very respectful to the referee, but I did question it. I was fairly insistent on the sideline that I definitely wasn't off my feet. By the time I was getting the car home, I was like quite furious about the fact that I definitely wasn't off my feet. Repeatedly said to my wife in the car, I don't think I was off my feet there. I really don't think I was. He pinged me for being off, and I really don't think I was off my feet. And then Southport have got one of those VO packs, so we did get the whole game. We could watch the whole game, which is interesting. And I was sitting watching it on Monday night when we got home, and my wife just leaned over and went, "Is that the one where you said you weren't off your feet?" And I am very much like belly flopped over and rolling about. So yeah, typical. Okay. On further video review, I was pretty off my feet.
That's typical fullback, though, Craig, isn't it?
Just doesn't know how to control himself in contact. But and also not only that, but also bores everyone else with his point-to-point breakdown of his performance during the week.
I've got a new video for you, Craig, of the kickoff where the winger called for it and then left it. So I grabbed it just as 3 of their forwards arrived. So I'll maybe send you that one later.
Oh, not again! More video evidence. Jeez, oh.
If you do listen, if you don't want to see me getting smashed by 3 forwards, you don't have to watch it.
Oh, I might watch that.
That's right. You want to stick that on your OnlyFans, Johnny? If you're watching live at the moment, we're live on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can also get an extended version of the podcast if you're on our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast. And for £3 a month, you get not just the normal episode where we talk about what's happened this week in Scottish rugby, but you also get a wee bonus episode where we have a little bit of a rant and put the world of rugby to rights as well. We're on audio podcasts as well, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts, and that bonus podcast for patrons, it comes out as an audio podcast also. So tonight, we are going to start by talking about the TikTok Six Nations game, Scotland versus France, Craig. I feel like we're back here again after the England game and the Wales game, and looking at the stats and watching the game. Scotland put in a very strong performance, and the scoreboard doesn't necessarily reflect that.
Yes, yeah. This week, I felt a little bit more that Scotland had lost their confidence, and I feel that watching the game, we had some phenomenal individual performances, but it just didn't seem to link up. And I actually think if a lot of the plays had linked up, we could have maybe had a better scoreline. So it was an interesting one. I have an absolute affinity with Christine Belial. I think she was absolutely, for the tight head props out there, come on. She was absolutely phenomenal, and she was performing incredibly well. The scrummage was good. We seemed to, take France a little bit aback with our scrummaging, and we performed very, very well. But I just felt there were just little instances and little issues that I think we could, if we could knock those out, I think we could actually be a far stronger squad.
I actually thought, Johnny, that the defence looked much better than it had done against, say, England. There weren't the kind of holes around the ruck, especially kind of at the try line and when the scramble defence was there. There were, I don't know if it was just better organised or everyone kind of just knew their role a bit more, and it's clear they've been working on it.
Yeah, I didn't see the game, obviously, because we were away over the weekend. So I kind of had to keep up with it online and was watching the Twitter feed on Sunday afternoon and stuff. And it certainly did seem, obviously you can see from the scoreline that the defence has been better organised this week than they have been before. I don't know. There still seems to be something. I can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but there's some sort of, there's a clinical edge missing, I think, from Scotland. They've got the talent. That's been obvious across all 3 games. But there's just something.
You know the answer, Johnny. You know the answer, Johnny. There's not. It's not. It's we can dance around the subject on a regular basis, and we can, and the team need far more time together, and the players need to be able to, for example, we've just had this conversation. I've just had this conversation with my wife, and we've been sitting discussing it because I wanted to come on all positive, and I wanted to not discuss paying players. I didn't want to discuss professionalism. I wanted to discuss something else about the game, because the Scotland team are worth more than me just constantly banging on about how they should be paid. But if you sit and watch, I think it's Maxwell, the 9, the 9, 10, 12, the movement of the ball is, very rarely did the ball hit exactly where you're expecting it to hit, which is in front of the body. It was up at the head or it was down closer to the knees. Most of the time it was up at the head. The minute that ball is above your head, then you're having to think about catching it, you stop your run, etc. And that can all be eradicated by, right, Jenny, today you are in the gym in the morning. After the gym, you're doing 100 passes off the floor, both arms. Then you go into training because you're being paid to do that job, and that's what you do. That's going to be depending on obviously whether she decides to come in as a professional rather than or if she's got a higher paying job. But that's the sort of thing that happens with professional men's rugby. You get that time to work on those issues, and if we are, and that's what the Red Roses do. So as far as I'm concerned, we can continue the conversation and let I've had my rant, but I just think there are a lot of things that can be changed.
No, I think let's have the discussion again because it's worth having again. And I think every week I come on and I'm the same as you, Craig. I think, let's try and not talk about it this week. But I think the problem is if you don't talk about it, then everyone just hope that there's probably a section that's just hoping that this discussion goes away. And I don't think, particularly when we're talking about Scotland, France, and the setups in France, we can't not talk about it. We can't not talk about. I mean, the fact that the Scottish scrum did what they did to the French scrum is phenomenal, given the position that Scotland are in and the players for Scotland are in. Now, that to me says you invest in those players and they can be better than, they can be even better. So imagine what they do at the French scrum then. And there was definitely a marked difference for me in the delivery of the ball at 9 when Katie Mattinson came on.
Yeah,
Katie Mattinson comes from, the Red Roses background. So the time that she'll have had developing a game, and I think it's just, it's night and day to what Jenny Maxwell will have had. Now, that's not to say that, that anybody's a better player than anybody. It's just the execution is different. And especially, I think, if your speed and accuracy from 9, you cannot play a game of rugby, or you can't play the game that you plan to play unless the speed and accuracy from 9's there.
Well, that's for me. Ruck speed is the current buzzword or buzzwords within international and professional rugby, but it's because the defences are getting better and better, and France's defence had Scotland rattled quite regularly, and had their attack rattled quite regularly on the weekend. The way to solve that problem is your ruck speed, because you have strong set piece, strong rucks, etc., with your forwards, which suck more and more players in, and then if you're getting that quick ball out of the back of the ruck, and it creates some space. The issue we had was we were too slow around that area, and if you're looking at that 9, 10, 12, that ball has to move down that line quicker, and unfortunately that wasn't happening as much as it should have. Sarah Law improved that a little bit as well when she came on. She seemed to, it seemed to almost settle a little bit, but the accuracy wasn't there.
It's actually, looking at the stats, the 47% of Scotland's rucks recycle was less than 3 seconds. So it's got to be the accuracy. It's like you said, it's where the ball's going. If the ball's not going in front of the player to run onto, then you're already on the back foot.
Yeah.
I've got a question about this, Craig, and you've obviously got a lot more experience than me in this area, so you might shoot me down straight away. But is there an element maybe that Scotland women aren't being held to the standard that they maybe should be because they're not professional? Like you're saying that Jenny Maxwell, if she was a professional, should be told you're going to do 100 passes off of each hand before training, which is what you would do if you're a professional. So is there maybe, and like I could be completely on the wrong course here, and you might be able to say, no, that's nonsense. But is there maybe an element that the coaching staff are saying, if this was your job, I would not accept that, but it's not your job, So you can't really turn up to them and say, and you can't turn up and take a strip off someone and say you're not good enough, you need to be doing this better, you haven't done your job here, because it's not their job. Are they not being held to that standard because they know that they're not being paid for it?
I don't think Brian Easton would, whether he's got fully professional or fully amateur players, I don't think his standards would be any different. I think it's more the fact of you can only demand a certain level from a player whose sole focus is rugby. Their job is to come in on a Monday morning and spend 8 hours within their job doing rugby things. That sounds really basic, and I don't mean to.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I'm getting at, though. That's what I meant. Yeah,
but I certainly don't. I certainly don't think Brian Easton is going. Like.
I'll let you off for that.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of saying. We're talking with my wife earlier on about, was the fact that I'm fed up of saying, I don't want to. I wanted to come on tonight and not have a go at the players about their skills and about their accuracy, etc., because they're doing a fantastic job, and they have their gameplay. They're a different team to 2 years ago. They're a far, far, far better team than 2 years ago. The problem you have is that now we're at a point where we are now demanding more. I don't want to be sitting back and going, well, that's what we get because we only, our players are being supported by the SRU. And that can be individual support, can be anything from just patting them on the back to giving them expenses to get to training, etc. It just doesn't cut the mustard for me.
It's interesting because Rachel Malcolm said at the end of the Wales game, we hold ourselves to professional standards.
Yeah,
but that anybody can do that. Anybody can say we hold ourselves to professional standards, and I have no doubt that they do that 100%. But you can't hold you can't fully hold yourself to professional standards, or you're not able to. Rather, I should say, you're not really able to 100% meet professional standards if you're not given a professional environment in which to operate, and that's not something they're knocking at the door trying to get that, and they're not getting it. And it's frustrating this week. I think that, Craig, you mentioned on the group chat earlier about, the Italy announcement that they're giving, what is it, 25 part-time contracts.
Mm.
And it's a clear, I think we said probably a couple of weeks ago, look, you look at the Wales and the Scottish model, they're probably, maybe in terms of money being put in and investment and time, it might be the same. But I think the difference is that Wales and now Italy have made very clear statements of intent about what they're doing. And that has to be, when the organisations are making public statements, that's got to give the players a little boost as well. But what we have in Scotland is, Brian Easton's having to kind of say in an interview, in the context of an interview about like a whole host of other things, not just about professional rugby, saying, well, we're doing what we can, we're helping people here and there. There was no big announcement from the SRU about that. It was just something Brian Easton has said. That's the only reason we know about it. And to a certain extent, I feel for Brian Easton, because that's not the head coach's job.
Mm-hmm.
He should be able to focus. What the players and Brian Easton should want, and all the coaches should be able to go in there and have a professional setup and concentrate on the rugby. Brian Easton shouldn't be worrying about whether his players have got pressure from the university, pressure from the jobs. That should be, somebody should be dealing with that so they don't have to think about it, if that makes sense. And I think we haven't had, and it's a failure of communication, I think, from the SRU, that we haven't had any statement of intent from the SRU. Brian Easton says that there's this ambition to be part of the Premier 15s. There's been no official statement from the SRU about that. And yet all the other unions are making these big, bold statements about the future of women's rugby in what is supposed to be a landmark Six Nations for women's rugby, sponsored by a big, huge multinational brand. And yet, and Scotland are competitive in this, but we haven't had any big announcement or big statement about the future of Scottish rugby from the SRU.
It's it's almost absolute silence, and it's almost to the point of if we keep quiet, no one will ask us about paying the players. It's almost like let's and it's this is what's frustrating me the most, and I may that I think I had a conversation on Twitter today, and it was almost the fact of, well, actually, I think you might be slightly wrong with your details, Craig, and I accept that. Sometimes I do get things wrong. The issue I have, though, is the fact that we're still having this conversation. We're still having this. We're having the conversation. The SRU are not having the conversation. They can't even come out and tell us why we're not in this. We're not in the situation of the RFU, the WRFU. Why aren't we in the same situation as why aren't we trying to compete, or are we trying to compete? Maybe the SRU have a master plan, but they're not communicating it, and it's frustrating because we see the results that the team are getting when they're still having to think about their jobs. They're still having to think about getting the money together to get to training and to do everything that they're doing, along with their professional career that they're playing rugby at the clubs that they're going and playing at. So it's just frustrating, and it gets and I'm frustrated. God help what the women are frustrated about,
Yeah, and then it was that and I think that's frustrating because the SRU are obviously doing things behind the scenes. We just don't know what it is, and so therefore it's hard to compare. I mean, they had the clips of the under-18s women's game against France, and there's that. If anyone's seen it on Twitter, they scored a try within 17 seconds. Now you think about the state of, from what I know, and Craig, you'll know more than me, but the state of women's rugby at youth level in Scotland is, you'll have, if you play rugby, if you're lucky, you'll have a club nearby that'll have a setup. But most people are going to have to travel a considerable distance to find a club, or you're going to have clubs putting people together and having exhibition matches. So to have an under-18 setup against France, where I would imagine their youth setup's much more advanced, to score a try within 17 seconds, and it was a bloody good try.
We won the game as well.
I mean, that pays test. I think that says a lot about what the efforts that are going in from people who aren't paid anything to do it, and there's a lot of investment. There's a lot of investment of time and effort from people who aren't in charge, and probably if they were in charge, would make the decisions to invest more heavily. And there isn't that's not being backed up from the SRU in terms of cold hard cash in the same way that the boys in the men's game is.
Yeah, it definitely. You definitely look at the pathways and the funding that goes into the boys and men's game, and then you look at the pathways. Now, okay, fair enough. The women's game, you could say is fairly new to rugby. They aren't, because they've been. I can hear my good friend Kath Vass already shouting at me, telling me, I've been around. She about 2 seasons ago, before I gave up, she entered her 30th season. So she, women's rugby's been strong in Scotland. The problem you have is that it's starting. The youth setup is starting to kick in now. We've got a lot more girls teams coming together. The internationals have become more and more to the fore because they're starting to play more games. Because obviously, a fair few years ago, there weren't the level of, or there weren't the volume of games played because there wasn't that many international teams put together. So it's coming together, but the funding's not there. And you look at, I know quite a few people that are involved in the Tayside and Fife girls section, which is kind of moving towards Caledonia region, and they're all doing that, volunteer wise, and they're bringing together players that are then going through to under 18 Scotland, and it's quite the level of commitment that's coming from the players and the coaches in those sections is quite dramatic and quite staggering. We have to take our hats off to them to provide such a strong under-18 section.
Yeah, and the fact, Johnny, that it's all very well and good having this good, very good Scotland women's team right now. That are in. So you take England and France out of the mix in the Six Nations, but they're competitive now with the other teams outside of England and France in the Six Nations, and that's great. And it's obviously inspiring a new generation of players, but you can't rely on, unless there's investment at that level, you can't rely on goodwill to produce players good enough to come in and step up to that level. We can't maintain a good Scotland women's team without investment at grassroots and investment in a professional level as well.
Yeah, and the post thing has women right at the middle of it. I forget what the third W is, but it's like well-being, women, and something else. And so, if that's going to be the focal point of your strategy and the main thing, because they did a big post-COVID review, they were like, "This is what we're going to focus on. This is our plan now." Right? Okay. Well, you've put women right at the center of that plan. It's in the title. You need to back that up now and back it up properly.
Yeah. So, back to France game.
We've got that out of our system now.
Got that out of our system. And it's good because we need to talk about it on the main pod. I don't want to stick it behind a paywall.
Yeah.
I want to keep having these discussions. I think it's important that we do.
Absolutely.
But it was, like I said, there are lots to like about how Scotland are playing. It's just like you said, Craig, just the execution. It's things like, and it's decisions as well. I mean, that third France try to box kick on your own line is, that's not a decision anybody should be making. You normally kind of throw it back to your 10, who's then got more time to kind of boot up the field. And it's little things like that, I think, that are letting Scotland down at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at Scotland as a whole, if you look at Scotland women, they went into the game against England with a game plan to take them on as hard as they possibly can. They took them on. We all were quite taken aback at their performance. Not taken aback's the wrong word. They put in a very good performance, and we were very pleased to see the performance they put in. We then go up against Wales, and it's the little things, as we've just talked about, that come into that. I think we had the beating of Wales, but we're away from home in a stadium that was very noisy, very full of Wales fans on all sides, etc. So I think that had a small effect on us within the game. And then you come to the French game, and it's our home game, and I felt that Scotstoun isn't the most ideal place for it, because if you look at the stand, they only opened the main stand. They didn't open the other stands that surround the pitch. Whereas at the Dam Health, and I'm not saying the Dam Health's better, I'm just saying that they surrounded the players on at least both sides at the Dam Health, so they had noise from both sides. Whereas with Scotstoun, I felt that it's a little bit.
I have to say, I'm not very pleased with 2,600 people at Scotstoun.
No.
Yeah.
That's what half of what we had. And I get it's England, it's France, not England. It was a Sunday, not a Saturday, and all of that. But that's half of what we had at the England game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They just sold out Kingsholm the day before for England Wales, 14,500 people. Like 2.5 is not a lot.
I think the problem is that they've prioritised Edinburgh over the women, and I think they should have found a solution to Edinburgh should have played elsewhere. If I'm honest, I don't know how you solve it. I don't know whether they could have stuck both games on, one game on in the big house and the other one on at the Dam, but I think it was a mistake to play that game at Scotstoun. If they're going to make the Dam if they're going to say the Dam's the women's home ground now, don't stick them out at Scotstoun halfway through a tournament.
It was great at the Dam as well. Like, and again, you do have to caveat it all. It was the first game of this big new tournament. It was England and all of that, but the Dam was jumping for that game.
Yeah.
But then again, Edinburgh played on Friday night.
True.
There's plenty of time to get it ready for the international team. Sorry, Johnny, I interrupted you there. But
I was finished. Don't worry.
Sorry, don't want to be accused of interrupting. But I think the going back to your original point of decisions made, all of that comes into, if you've got the crowd with you, your decisions then become clearer. I don't know how to put that across, but when you're playing with a crowd and they're cheering you everything that goes well, it almost gives you that momentum that any bad decision kind of floats out your head, and everything's a good decision, if you know what I mean. Your confidence raises higher, and I just feel there was a few things that were. There was a few mistakes by players. There was a few mistakes by the SRU.
Because it makes you feel like. I mean, you can see it would make you feel like the poor. It would pee me off. I'd be peed off if I was a woman and I'd been shunted out to Scotstoun after the big fanfare of the Dam and we'll play the women's game at the Dam and the atmosphere. All of a sudden you're like, I'm not. This isn't a slight against Scotstoun. It's not Murrayfield. So I think that's the whole idea, is that they're playing in mini Murrayfield. They're playing. This is the women's home ground now, and there's something about that. And being shunted around doesn't help. And I like the fact that they were given the Scotland dressing room to go and sit in and get. That shows, I think, a commitment and from the SRU as an organisation to say, we hold you in this high regard. We're going to put you in our brand new stadium next to the national stadium, and you get to use the big changing room, the national team's changing room, because you're our national team.
Yeah.
Whereas,
and it is,
we've got a game on Friday night for Edinburgh. Sorry, girls, you're going to have to go and jump on the bus to Scotstoun this weekend.
Speaking of jumping on the bus, it is not that easy to get to Scotstoun.
Nope.
No.
Like, the Dam and Murrayfield are great. You jump off a Haymarket and you walk for 20 minutes down the road. Like, to be honest, even from certain bits of Glasgow, it's probably easier to get to the Dam than it is to get to Scotstoun.
Yeah. Well, we did it on Friday
night. And all
night.
of that affects it.
We did it on Friday night. You drive down, you park at Inglestown Park and Ride, get on the tram, and you're there. And this is no disrespect to Scotstoun, because Scotstoun Full is a place. It's a place to be. Scotstoun with 2,500 in it is a cold.
It's like play. Well, it's just like play. You're playing on a. You're basically playing on a council pitch. That's what I feel. That's what it must feel like when it's a half-empty stadium. You might as well be playing, an afternoon session on a council pitch.
Although the women's game has been, most of the time has been played at Scotstoun. When we didn't have the Dam health. But it's as I say, there was lots of things. I think there was some good play. We really shouldn't really be talking about these things when we've got players putting a hell of a job in and they look very, very good. But on the other side of things, I really do think that the SRU are getting this a fair bit wrong at the moment, and they can get the results that they probably want to have, and we all want to have, if they just made a few more thoughtful decisions.
Yeah, I mean, there was lots to like. I mean, that the scramble defence at 77 minutes to hold out the French try and to get the turnover and get back up the field. Great commitment. I think this group of players look like they're a hard group of players, and I think Scotland are a hard team to beat. They don't, like you said, Belle, the way that she carried the whole game was just unbelievable. And then although I do want to, I was a bit worried for the end of the world, given that Emma Wassell missed her first consecutive cap in a while. I thought, God, that's it.
Yeah, I thought, the
Ravens leaving the Tower of London.
One one thing, and certainly from my point of view, I've just kind of tried to keep up with it online, is that I watched the first two games, obviously, and in the first two games, Scotland started really strongly. And then obviously against the Red Roses, their depth and their professionalism just kind of crept into it. Against Wales, we made kind of mistakes that let them back into the game. When I saw us going that far down, I thought this is going to be a problem. But this was the first game where Scotland had come out strong in the second half and come back into the game. So they've showed that obviously not only can they start strong, but they can finish strong as well. They just need to put it all together into one single game, I think.
Yeah.
I definitely think fitness levels are higher. And you know, we talk about professionalism as in monetary. The professionalism of the team has raised as well, as in professional attitudes, and they're willing to do an 80-minute, whether they're getting a drubbing or they're winning, they are going to put in an 80-minute performance, and that's really pleasing to see.
I mean, in the context of the other games that France have played, Scotland have kept them to the lowest score. I mean, it was 39 against Italy and 40 past Ireland. So actually, in the context of the wider tournament, Scotland's defensive performance against France was certainly better than Ireland and Italy's on score. So that's when we're talking about where Scotland are within the context of the kind of the semi-professional section of the Six Nations, almost division B, the B Conference B of the TikTok Six Nations. They're up there, and I think we might look back at this tournament and see that Wales game as a bit of a missed opportunity to maybe have had a crack at third.
Yeah. I think if it was a reverse fixture, I think if Wales came to either Scotland or the Dam Health, I think we would have won it.
Yeah.
I think the crowd and the minute the minute Wales got a foothold and the crowd got behind them, that's when we were in trouble. And I think that's where and not to equate it to the men's game, but that's where Edinburgh have performed incredibly well at the Dam Health, because the crowd is now behind them. And so I think that's I think we have to start at the beginning and say, right, well, if we can get the crowds there, that gives them an extra 5%.
Yeah, and the crowd's been so close to the pitch at the Dam as well, compared to Scotstoun, where you've got the running track and stuff. It's
If you look at it purely from like a bookmaker's point of view, a home team, when it comes to the spread at the bookies, gets 3 points. So the 3 points that the bookies assume that you get from playing at home is the difference in that game against Wales.
And that's where the score was. That's exactly. We had the opportunity there, and we are at the level of Wales. And for me, the Ireland game will be the telling, the test, the telling. That's where we'll know definitely our position within the Six Nations.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's leave it for this week. We'll kind of talk about this Italy game this weekend, so we'll see where we are after that. Also, this weekend is the start of the Super 6 Sprint Series. I don't
get to bring my fan back out.
You can do if you want to. I'm very excited with the Southern Nights. My, Craig. My.
Man.
So the Super 6 this year is going to be, there's going to be essentially three tournaments within it. There's the Sprint Series that we've got now. Then there's going to be a North v South, finally getting a return to the districts. I think this is just to satisfy Scottish rugby boomers. Okay, have a districts game, be happy. And then it's the normal Super 6 after that. I don't know, it feels... I don't know what the point of the Sprint Series is, if I'm honest. I'm struggling to understand it, Craig. I don't...
It's almost like it's a pre-season.
Yeah. So we couldn't find any proper pre-season for them, so we're going to have our own.
They haven't played a few games, so let's get these boys are being paid for to semi paid for this job. Let's get them out and have a go. And it's an interesting one. I don't understand it. And this is the problem, though. Last season we kind of all went into the Super Six, kind of going, "Oh, it's the Super Six." Not so sure it's a good idea. Not all that sure. And then all of a sudden, I really enjoyed it. So maybe I'm hoping that it's going to be, this sprint series was amazing, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Are you looking forward to it, Johnny?
I'd like a lot of the stuff that was really good about the Super Six isn't really there for the sprint series. Like, we liked the Super Six last year because it was like late summer rugby, loads of running about. It was really good fun. There was the Friday night games. And I don't know. It just, this doesn't really have to, it's 7th season.
Yeah.
So why are we bothering with the Super Six?
Now, a Super Six 7 series.
See, now we're talking.
There we go.
Now we're talking.
Rugby X, Super 6, Rugby 10. You have to play. I think here's what the Super. I think what the sprint series should have been, and SRU, if you're listening, you can have this idea for free. Is that in the sprint series every week they play a different form of rugby? So they start with 7s, and then they play Rugby X, then they play Rugby 10s, then they just have a game of rugby league for the laugh, and then up with a game of 15s.
That's 5 games as well, so that's perfect.
Perfect, exactly.
There we go. Yeah.
So the sprint series should be a display of every form.
Just
of
add more players every game.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but I don't know. It's interesting because there was a few things that have come out, I think, recently about the Super Six. One is that the SRU have taken money. I don't know from they're able to find money, you see, Craig, when they want to. But there's money from the development funds in order to basically pay the coaches of the Super Six teams to be full time, which I assume there's money from a coaching development point of view. But I suppose you've got Pete Horn's not going to do it for free, is he, Johnny?
No, and I mean, I know we laugh at that, and we've just talked about the women and stuff, but at the same time, we shouldn't be expecting them to do it for free. It's being the head coach of a Super Six franchise, I imagine, is quite a big job, and so it is funny that this money's just appeared when we've been talking about all the things we need money for a long time, but I don't want it to sound at the same time like we're begrudging the coaches this money, because it's a lot of work, especially if they go to 3 tournaments.
I don't begrudge the coaches money. What I do begrudge is the fact that we asked these teams to apply to be Super Six teams. They could put it in their business plan to pay their coaches. They don't have to rely on the Six Nations, the SRU, to pay their coaches for them. Now, unless the SRU are saying, right, well, we're going to pay these coaches because we want to develop them, and they are going to be the next coaches of Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Scotland. But as far as I'm concerned, if you look at these Super Six teams that put in their bid to be a Super Six team, and they said, yes, we can afford to pay players, and etc. Well, surely you put it in your business plan that you're going to pay your coach.
It's even worse because I've got it wrong when I've reread the bit. It's not the head coaches that they're looking to pay. It's actually the general managers who are responsible for the commercial side of the game. So we're paying.
That money had better be coming from their executive development fund at Old Glory. That's all I'm going to say.
This is Jim Malander. I'm not doing my Jim Malander voice. He says, I'm really pleased we've been able to allocate existing funding for each team in support of the general manager roles. Whilst we've previously invested on field, we now feel the time is right to support and invest the teams off field within budget. The general manager is responsible for developing and improving all off-field activities, prioritizing commercial expansion and overseeing the marketing and communication strategy of each of their teams. But I mean, that's the whole point of the franchise, that they did that themselves.
I make my point again and take away the coach's name and put in the general manager's name.
Right. Maybe I have got this wrong, but I'm so sure, me and Cammy were talking about this the other day, that when this investment in Old Glory was announced, one of the plans was that it was a pathway for developing executives, wasn't it? They were going to go to the MLR, which was like American sports. We're going to get all these great ideas that American sports have got. We're going to develop executives that way. They're going to come back to Scotland. They're going to bring some American razzle dazzle from the MLR in. So why are we now also paying more general managers in a semi-professional league?
So I'm just having a look at the original.
The investment was to
announcement.
come up with a new Flinty. That's the issue. They came back from the MLR and said, you know, the old Flinty, that the wraparound glasses doesn't work for me.
It needs to go.
It needs to get a big round face.
When you design it, use your slightly darker brown felt tip.
Exactly.
We need a Flinty that will drive a motorcycle past someone when they're trying to kick a conversion. That's what 2 years at the MLR have taught me. You are welcome.
I'm trying to. So, yeah, it just said it was all about expanding Scottish rugby's global footprint. So, yeah.
Did I invent that about the executives?
I'm trying to look through the.
I think they've got somebody over there saying, "Oh, I know you play American rugby, but have you got a Scottish granny?"
It just said it's investment. An investment exploring the feasibility of creating an MLR team in DC. Yeah, there was nothing about it being to develop. It's important we're creative and develop opportunities beyond our own. So it says it's important we're creative and develop opportunities beyond our own borders. And we're very much looking forward to growing our relationship with the team in Washington in the years to come. This is Dominic Mackay. Then Mark Dodson added, it's a strategic international partnership which I am pleased to have secured to become the first Tier 1 nation to take this step with the team in the MLR. We see this relationship as having a number of benefits for rugby in Scotland, as well as developing our global rugby footprint.
Nah, maybe I didn't invent it.
Yeah, I think you might have invented that. But it is... it was financial investment and operational support they put forward. So you're right,
maybe I've got it the wrong way around then, yeah.
But they made a financial investment and put in operational support, which says they taught them how to sell tickets.
Yeah. Taught them how to make money, and then what they do, the first major rugby nation to be involved in take this step in the MLR, but we are quite a fair bit back.
And now still the only Tier 1 nation to invest, the only nation to invest, because everybody else looked at it and went, "Nah, you're all right."
Yeah. And then we're now way down the pecking order in women's rugby. Well done, nice open thinking there.
Yeah, but so Super 6. I mean, I'm excited about Super 6 being back. Like you said, John, it was good summer rugby. There's a few players. I mean, I think Ian was going to be with us tonight, but he's incapacitated. He's blaming his new mattress. The Yari Fantini, who played for Ayrshire Bulls, he's gone to Benetton. There's a fair few players I think have moved on elsewhere, which I guess it shows the standard of the competition they were able to do that. There's a few young. I'm interested. Nathan Chamberlain's being not linked to, as in there's a rumor he is going to be linked with the My Southern Knights, Craig. And
yeah, it's an interesting one because just after at the end of the season, after being in a final, the My Southern Knights seemed to implode quite dramatically.
Yeah,
and a huge amount of players just departed.
Ayrshire Bulls have got something like, I think when I was trying to count, it was like 15 or 16 of their 23 for tomorrow night are on debut. And that's the other thing there.
Yeah.
I wonder if this will kind of come to characterize, as much as the SRU sold this as, this isn't a development league. This is us kind of giving the teams that have been pushing to be professional an opportunity to do so. But given it's going to be a development league. If every season you're starting with 15 debutants in your team, it's essentially and you're having to top up the squads with academy players. It's a development league, which isn't a bad thing. I personally think that's what it should have been all along.
Well, I would have expected all of our under-20s Scotland players to be involved in one of the teams.
Yeah.
Somehow, because that's how you develop them.
Well, that's what Murray Redpath signed for the Southern Knights.
Yeah.
And given, like you said, the main difference, you looked at some of the physical differences between Scotland and the other under-20s nations in the Six Nations. They need to be, the Super Six was a very good physical test, I would say. And you look at what Southern Knights, I think, played that game at the end of last season against Falcons A side with they had Mike Brown in that team, and I know they parachuted the likes of Jacob van der Vault and a couple of other Embra guys in, but it was still largely a Southern Knights team that beat them.
Yeah.
So again, I think that it shows that the standard of competition is there, and it's maybe is a good place to physically test the under-20s players and bring them up to scratch much quicker.
Yeah,
it's
you'll
only
have
11
that.
debutants, by the way, but that's still half your team.
Yeah. It's an interesting one to see because I was. It really is, no matter how many times people deny it. It is a development league. It's got to be a development league. That's why invest a huge amount of money into it to not have it feeding the professional teams and feeding because you're giving these players a glimpse of semi-professional rugby. Whether they're young or whether they're old, and you're getting a mixture of some of the players who used to play professional for professional teams are either coming back to coach or they're slipping back into play as well. So it's developing your younger teams and your future professionals. I would have expected. It's got to be a development league.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. I'm excited about it again. We'll
it's nice to have it back.
Yeah.
I think we need to start merchandising though. I think it needs to be. We need to start seeing some fans hoodies and stuff like that, and
I'm going to go. I'm in Melrose on holiday in June. I'm going to go and get myself some Southern Knights stash.
I'll tell you what, the Stirling County Nike stash is absolutely beautiful.
Is it because their kit last year? We talked about their kit, particularly their shorts last season. Yeah.
The
hyping.
It's all their like off-field stuff and the rest of their stash is quite, because it's Nike stuff. Obviously, it's quite similar to the Fiji stuff.
Right.
So it is. It's really nice.
Have they done that thing where they've just like you just go and buy it off the peg and it is essentially the Fiji stuff, but they just stick the Stirling badge on it?
Got an iron-on transfer.
Muckle palm tree. How come you got a palm tree on your kit?
So it's how the Fiji stuff is all like, it's got the tick in the middle that says Fiji underneath it. It's basically like that, but it says county underneath instead. But it's nice though. I like it.
Okay. I can see Johnny's nailing his allegiances to a certain flagpole now with just because their kit looks really good.
Whoever's got the nicest kit is who I will support, and I'll support them twice as hard if they send me that kit. That's all I'm saying.
They have got it through Kit Locker, so it is. To be fair, that is nice. They've got it through Kit Locker though, so it is just a generic Nike stuff with their badge on. But it is that. To be fair, it is nice. And do you know what? The sponsors logo is nice as well. I like a good when the sponsors logo is done sympathetically.
Yeah,
it can look really nice.
Yeah.
So no, I agree. That is nice. That is nice stash. I'll have to see what the Southern Nights one looks like for when I go in June.
It's a special bonnet with the
the fan.
Yeah.
If I was the that's what I'd be doing. If I was the marketing director, if I was the general manager of Southern Knights, free paper fans for everybody. And when the score, whenever we score, the whole crowd goes my. In fact,
with try written on the back of one of them.
Yeah, exactly. My.
I'm so glad that Super 6 is back.
Yeah, all the way to the end of August, Johnny. Okay. That's it for this week. I think we're going to do the Patreon podcast in a minute, but that's for the end of the main podcast for this week. We'll be back probably next Wednesday. We'll see how things go. either Wednesday or Thursday next week, to review the Scotland-Italy game, talk about the first round of the Super 6 sprint. At that point, we won't know yet whether Berwick have finished above Howard Fife in National 3 and been promoted. We should know that in a couple of weeks, though. 2 games in hand. We'll see how that goes.
Yes, we
2 games in hand, yeah. There's no way. It's not happening.
3 points difference at the minute, 2 games in hand, Craig. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, for the moment, it is goodbye from me and goodbye from Craig and Johnny.
Bye.
Well.